Hello everyone, my name is Ramsri. I'm a fractional developer advocate at Segmind and an AI SaaS builder. Today we are going to see another interesting application of generative AI, that is generating illustrations for children's stories in one click using AI. We will see how we can generate the kind of illustrations that you can see here. We will create a simple Gradio UI where you can put in some text and then pick a style and generate illustrations in one click. Let's see how we can do this algorithmically. We'll first take the text, use OpenAI's ChatGPT API and extract a list of illustration prompts. So once we extract 3 or 4 illustration prompts from the input text or story, we are going to use Segmind's API that takes in each of this illustration description or prompt and generates a relevant image for that prompt. Segmind uses SDXL, that is Stable Diffusion XL 1.0, to generate high quality illustrations in the style that we give. Without further ado, let's get started and see this in action with code. The link to this collab notebook will be available in the description of this video. So first let's install two libraries, Segmind and Gradio. So Segmind is the text to image API that we are going to use, and Gradio is the UI. We need two API keys, OpenAI API and Segmind API. If you are unfamiliar with OpenAI API, let's see how we can get our key. Platform.openai.com. And if you're logging in for the first time, it will ask you to sign up with your credentials. Once you're signed up, go to the top right and click on view API keys. So here are the API keys that are available. You can create a new secret key and you will be able to copy the key only the first time when you create it. So make sure that you download or save it in a secure place. And once you have the key, run this cell and enter your OpenAI key here. Similarly, let's see how we can get Segmind API key. So visit segmind.com and log in when prompted. Once you're logged in, go to the console. Once you're in the console, if there is no API key already created, you can create a new API key by clicking on here. Just keep this as default and click on confirm, and a new API key will be created. And once you have the Segmind API key ready, run this cell as well and enter your Segmind API key here. These are basically the ChatGPT headers and URL, ChatGPT URL. So the chat completions endpoint that we are going to use from OpenAI to do text generation. Let's run this cell. Next, this is the main code, fetch illustrator prompts. So given some text that is kid story or children's story, we are going to create a prompt and extract the briefs for illustrator that we want to give. So we are going to take those briefs or illustration prompts, and then we are going to generate the illustrations for each of the generated prompt. So simply put, we take in the text and we generate, let's say, 3 descriptions to give to the illustrator. And instead of using a real illustrator, we are going to use Segmind's SDXL, that is Stable Diffusion XL model, that will take in the description and generate a relevant image that fits into the story. And this is the standard ChatGPT payload and code that we are going to use. So this is how the main ChatGPT messages element looks like, which essentially has system description content and the main user prompt. So let's see how the content is. System content is: you are an expert author who can read children's stories and create short briefs for an illustrator. providing specific instructions, ideas or guidelines for the illustrations you want them to create. So this is basically the system prompt, and then we have user prompt, which we are going to see. And this is a standard ChatGPT payload where we are using GPT 3.5 Turbo 16K model, because even if you have a story that is longer in length, it can take up to 16,000 tokens and it can generate an output. So once we have the prompt and once we call the request.post function with the ChatGPT URL that I mentioned above, and with these headers and with this payload, we get back the response that we want in here and we return that. We just have retries here. So max retries is 3 because we tried to output JSON, but in case if we fail in 1 or 2 attempts, we do up to max retries 3. But usually within 1 or 2 retries, even if there are JSON errors, we get that correctly within 1 or 2 retries and we return back. Now let's see the actual prompt that is created, that is passed into this. So this is how the prompt is. So basically you have some placeholder for text. We are just doing a JSON dumps because if the text has any input that's not JSON safe, we want to clean that up. That's why we are doing this. So we have some text, for example, some short story, The Boy Who Cried Wolf. I'm taking from here, momlovesbest.com, short moral stories kids. So a very small story. So you can give this story. For example, that comes in as the text here. And then you have a separator. Generate again a parameter. For example, count here could be 3. So generate 3 short briefs as a list from the above story to give as input to an illustrator to generate relevant children's story illustrations. Strictly add no common prefix to briefs. Strictly generate each brief as a single sentence that contains all the necessary information. We don't want the brief to be long, that's why we are giving this instruction. And strictly output your response in a JSON list format adhering to the following sample structure. And this is sample structure. Essentially, we have a JSON that starts with brackets, then you have illustrations, and then there is a list that is generated, and these are the illustrations. Now this is the prompt prefix, and we add this to the prompt prefix, and we have a post instruction which is essentially output colon, and we expect the model to generate something in this format. That is what this is. So we are creating the prompt here. If we pass in the story as well as how many briefs that we want, we are creating the prompt here. That is what this is. Now let's actually see how the prompt looks like. For example, I took the same story. I have that as text. Now I have count as 3. So I want to generate 3 illustrations from this. And generate prompt just creates the prompt. Let's see how the prompt is. And this is how the prompt is. So you have the whole story here. Then there is a separator. Generate 3 short briefs as we have seen previously. And then strictly output as JSON list adhering to the following sample structure and output colon. So this is what the prompt is every single time. Only the thing is that this is parameterized where the story is dynamically appended, and this is parameterized how many briefs we want, and rest of the things are constant. Let's see how we can use this. So basically we are calling fetch illustrator prompts with this prompt that we created right here, and we also have the ChatGPT URL and ChatGPT headers. And we already created this fetch illustrator prompts with retries. Let's run this and see. Awesome. So if we just print fetch illustrator prompts, this is what the output is, which is JSON illustrations. Illustrate the shepherd boy standing on a hillside looking bored as he watches the village sheep grazing. And we have just like this format that we gave, it outputted in this format. Now we are just extracting, all the individual illustrations from here, and these are the three illustrations. Illustrate the shepherd boy standing on a hillside looking bored as he watches the village sheep grazing. Second prompt is show the villagers. There's some error here, but anyways, show the villagers running up the hill with angry faces, believing the boy's cries about a wolf chasing the sheep. Then the last thing is create an illustration of the shepherd boy weeping on the hillside as the villagers discover the flock is gone and realize the boy was telling the truth about the wolf. Although it looks a little bit more complex, we can kind of get decent images, hopefully. Let's see. Now we use ChatGPT, that is OpenAI, and given some text, we got some illustrations. That is, we got 3 illustrations that we need to create. Now we are going to use Segment API to pass the description of each illustration and generate the relevant illustrations for it. Let's see how we can do this. So we already installed Segment through pip, and we are initializing the model here, which is SDXL, Stable Diffusion XL, with the API key. And this is how the generate images function looks like, which essentially we are calling model.generate, that is the SDXL model, with a prompt. And how are we going to create the prompt? So basically the prompt is exactly, we are passing in each of the illustration. So the prompt is exactly this thing, where we are removing any full stops with and inserting commas, as well as appending the style. Why? Because we are going to use 4 styles: watercolor, comic book, etc. So other than giving the style parameter, if you also give the style within the description, it's much better. That's why we are just appending the style as well to the prompt. So the prompt will be this, comma, watercolor, or something like that. And we have our negative prompt, which is we don't want to generate these things, which is, since we are generating illustrations, children's illustration, we don't want a real photograph, we don't want a real stock photo. Everything is, more in line with children's generated illustration, which is, it should be non-realistic. That's why we are giving these as negative prompts, realistic photograph and all this. So we have the prompt, a negative prompt, and samples and style. These are the standard parameters. So for style, I found about 4 styles that we can use to generate illustrations. We'll see in the Gradio app. And these are standard: scheduler, UniPC, and seed is something that I am randomly generating. And I'm using the same seed to generate images for all the, let's say, 3 images here, whatever we are looping through, so that they are similar. If there is a character that is there that appears similar in all the images, etc. And inference steps 30, etc. So simply we are calling this model.generate function, and this model.generate function returns a pill image, so pillow image, and all we are doing is just appending all the images back into this array and returning. Let's run this and see. Here we are giving style as watercolors, and we are getting all images. All we are doing is passing in the list, which is illustrator prompts illustrations, that is these 3 values, along with the style. Here we are giving watercolor. Let's run this. As you can see, a seed is initialized and we are generating images sequentially. You can see that I have 8723 credits remaining in my Segmind account. So if you have low credits, you can go and pay and fill it up. so that you have enough credits to do generations. But here you can see we are done very quickly. Let's see how we can illustrate this. In order to see all the images as well as the descriptions combined, I use a very simple library called ipyplot. It's very interesting. You can just see here once I run this. So simply import ipyplot and ipyplot.plot images, all the pill images that we created as well as their corresponding labels and image width. Let's run this and see. Amazing. So basically we generated 3 illustrations. Illustrate the shepherd boy standing on a hillside looking bored as he watches the village sheep grazing. That's what this illustration is. Show the villagers running up the hill with angry faces. Boy cries about a wolf chasing the sheep. Of course, it didn't get all the details correctly, but this looks pretty good. I mean, some people running and there is some ruckus happening. And the third one is create an illustration of a shepherd boy weeping on the hillside as villagers discover the flock. Well, it didn't get things correctly, but there is some wolf and some sheep. So looks okayish, not bad. Amazing. So basically we just took a story from here and we generated these illustrations. Why is this amazing? Because if you see here, instead of using a relevant illustration, they just got a stock footage of some wolf, then the golden touch, some other stock footage, the fox and the grapes, some other stock footage. So instead of using random stock footages, even if you use one of these illustrations, that's amazing, right? Like automatically creating the boy who cried wolf, this illustration would fit in much more perfectly than a random stock footage. And you don't need any creativity, rather you just enter the story and you get this illustration. So that's very useful if you want to automatically generate illustrations. Now let's go ahead and create a simple UI with Gradio and let's see how we can do this with one click. And this is all the code that is necessary. Here I am just, giving the same story as, template, which is pre-filled. And again, create illustrations is just returning the pill images. Whatever we have done previously, I've put that in 3 simple steps. That is, once you get the text input and count, fix some count and generate the prompt. Once you get the prompt, pass that to ChatGPT and get the illustration prompts. Once you get the illustration prompts, generate images and now return those pill images. That's about it. And here I am giving 4 topics. So if you want to understand more about these topics, go to segment.com, models, and go to stable diffusion. Understand these styles, comic book, etc. Just generate an image and you'll see what are the styles available here. Comic image. So you can play around with all these styles, but in order to fit in for children's illustrations, I found these 4 the most perfect. You might already be aware of watercolor comic book. Kawaii is basically a minimalistic cute style that is originating from Japan. And line art. Let's also see what these are. And we have simple UI with Gradio blocks that I created. It will be very evident once you see the UI. I usually like to click on this button so that I have a dedicated page where I can keep the, do my experiments, etc. So here I have pre-filled the same story, which is the boy who cried wolf. And within the drop down, you have 4 options to choose from: watercolor, comic book, kawaii, line art. Let's try kawaii and just click on generate illustrations and wait for about 20 seconds or something. And this UI will generate some illustrations. So beautiful. So Japanese cute art style. It generated some images relevant to the story. So the interesting thing is that this is a Gradio gallery. So you can just click on any of the image. You can see at the bottom you can swap through, and on the top right you have this download button. You can click on the download as well to download the image. So you can, it's a very nice UI where you can scroll through the gallery as well as download the images that you want. Now let's try another style. Instead of kawaii, let's try, let's say, line art, generate illustrations. And the thing to remember is that the Gradio app doesn't refresh very fast. So even when you generate illustrations, for a few seconds, you will see the previous style images itself. For example, like this, but just wait 1 or 2 seconds and they will be replaced with the new style. Awesome. So you have line art. Again, this is an amazing image that fits in very well with the story. This is another amazing image where the villagers are running towards the hill. Probably this is not very useful, but anyways, you got two nice images that you can use. Just click on download again at the top right. Beautiful. Let's try comic book as well. Click on generate illustrations again. Okay, let's see. We got the comic book style. This looks good. Again, shepherd boy, villagers, etc. Amazing. Relevant images. So essentially there's just text box, there's a drop down, then there is a generate illustration button, and then there's a gallery. So simply that's what is seen in this code. There is a, just this is the title. There is a text input. Then there is a genre drop down picker that is choosing from all these topics. Then there is a button, generate illustrations. Then we have the gallery. What this does is that whenever the button is clicked, it calls this function create illustrations with these inputs, that is whatever is available in text input text box as well as the genre drop down selector. It's going to get the pill images, and those pill images will be passed to the output element, that is the gallery. So very simple UI, nothing too complex. And let's go back to the Gradio app. Let's pick another story. Proud Rose. Okay, let's see. Let's just copy this Proud Rose story. Just delete this. Enter the text. And let's choose a style watercolor and click on generate illustrations. So this is the Proud Rose story. Let's see what are the images that we'll get. Amazing. So looks like, it's a comparison between, cactus and rose. So I don't know much about the story, but you can at least see that, there's cactus, rose, and sparrow. One of these can be used, maybe the last one. I like the last one. This fits in much better than a random, stock photo that's here. So you can generate these illustrations on the fly with one click. I hope you liked the video. Thanks a lot for watching. See you in another one.